Welcome everybody. This is Beyond the Black Tag. You are speaking to Mao here. With me is, as always, my wonderful co-host, Jeremy Chagadama. And today we have a very, very, very special guest. We've been looking forward to this one for a long time. All right. Today, our guest has been in Area 70. He has been a mission president. He's held lots of other church callings, and so very, very respected and with a lot of wisdom as well. We are today with President or Brother Khumbulani Mdletshe. President, how are you doing today?
Oh, that's wonderful. I think you're correct to say Brother Khumbulani Mdletshe.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, we are happy to be with you. You know, it takes a while to get used to different calling of someone, especially if you've been used to them with a certain title. And so if we call you Elder Mdletshe, if we call you President Mdletshe, if we call you Brother Mdletshe, please forgive us if it's not the correct title.
No problem.
Our guests are going to be very, very excited about this one. We know that for sure, all right, because we have been looking forward to this, like I said, for a while, and we have a wealth of wisdom that we're going to be drawing from. Tata, can you please tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, your mission as a young man as well. We'll dive into that as well a little bit later on. But your mission as a young man, where you served, just a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Khumbulani Mdletshe. I was born in KwaMashu, and there is a township north of Durban. And I'm married to a wonderful lady, Futhi Mdletshe. She's also from KwaMashu. And we've been living in Gauteng, Johannesburg for the last 30 years. And we are blessed with 4 children and 1 grandson. And as you mentioned, a year ago, we returned from serving as mission leaders in Kenya. But we have served in various other capacities in the church. And I served as a young man in England, London South Mission as a missionary, and which was really a wonderful experience for me. It's at a very formidable age, and learned a lot about life and about the church, and about just interaction in general with people. I treasure everything that I learned as a young man on the mission. My wife did not have a chance to serve a mission. I convinced her to marry me before she even thought about that. And yes, and I've had a career, 26 years career with the church in various capacity, but mainly in seminaries and institute and with the church history department.
Yeah, no, so with your life, so it's just kind of funny how I got to kind of meet you, because you, Brother Khumbulani Mdletshe, before you went and served your mission, you actually served with my parents for a while, when they were preparing for the FSY that happened in 2019 in Durban. And
yes.
I came into Joburg. I've now moved into Joburg, and I'm now staying at the Mdletshe residence. And with them, he didn't really know who I was until I got there and I told him my surname. Then he's like, I know you from somewhere, I know your parents. Yeah, and we kind of got to just get to know each other again. And I think it's just the coolest thing how we just, I guess, get to learn how small the world is. And I'm grateful for you and to be with you. But also about your family, how I know your first boy, so your second child has served a mission, and I think that's also amazing from your example, that you've got to have a child to go on mission, and I think that's a cool thing as a parent. How is that for you to see your child go off on mission when you recall your mission and yourself even as a mission president?
Well, I think that I can't remember which leader said this, Brother Shadagama, that is, it is every parent's dream to have their child serve a mission, and number 2, be married in the temple. And so, in a sense, Sister Mdletshe and I, my wife Futhi and I, have raised our children, especially our son, with an expectation that they will go on a mission. So Skhumbuzo was raised with that expectation. We've got our youngest son right now. We talk to him about going on a mission. Because personally, I really believe that it is really a defining moment for every young man and young women, those young women that have a privilege to go and serve a mission. I can't think of any place, Brother Sharagama, that a young person can go into and learn under a great leader who has been called of God by prophecy and by revelation to preside over the mission and influence these young people for good. Number 2, I just don't think that young people really appreciate the opportunity to live that well-defined and disciplined life, waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and don't come home until 9 o'clock, working for 2 days, 24/7. I mean, I've always told even my missionaries that if you can live that schedule and live it very fully, it should be able to really define the rest of your life. And so really, I think that a missionary opportunity taken with the seriousness that it deserves should be able to bless every young man. I'm not talking about this as a leader, but I'm talking from my very own experience in terms of those basic lessons that I learned as a young missionaries, and how then they were able to support me and sustain me. And the church provides this opportunity to every young man and young woman. And both of you've seen, you can tell a missionary that went on a mission and was obedient and did everything. When they come back, they continue from where they ended. On the other hand, also, you can tell a missionary who has gone on a mission field but wasted his or her time by not learning that which was supposed to learn while they're on the mission. For example, the hard work and being obedient, and then what then become of them. And so, and I know I've taken long to answer a very simple question about how I feel about my son having served a mission. I feel very good because I think that it is a learning opportunity to go on a mission. Besides going up there and preaching the gospel and making sure that people come into the church through the waters of baptism, but also a mission contributes to you as a young person in terms of the lessons that you learn.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question, Brother Mdletshe. Knowing, of course, I feel like your son felt immense pressure by having parents like yourselves to serve and serve well. I want to transition to your other sons and daughters. Lucky for you, there are mission presidents who only have sons. There are mission presidents who only have daughters. And you have had both sons and daughters of Helaman that you've served with. My question is twofold. The first part of it is, do you feel that your mission many, many years ago as a young man contributed to the type of mission president you became? And secondly, what lessons do you feel you and Sister Mdletshe learned while serving these young people in Kenya, and just Kenya as a country in itself? So if you can also shift it not only from the lessons you had as a young man taking that as a mission president, but secondly, going into this particular land that the Lord has called you to, and lessons that you learned from that.
Well, so maybe let me begin by those lessons. You know, one of the most wonderful lessons that I picked up as a mission president was that the Lord works in a very interesting way. He chooses 2 adults and calls them to be mission leaders. Then he gives them all of these young people to work with, to do an amazing job. And for me, it was an amazing to see young people come and do this amazing work. And maybe I can even be more specific on this. We were the COVID-19 mission president, meaning that we served during COVID-19. So overnight, we witnessed what we call a transformation in terms of how we do missionary work. From knocking doors and stopping people on the street to using technology to do missionary work. To walk in a leadership meeting, in a zone conference, and introduce that as a mission president with very little knowledge of technology compared to the young people, and then to watch them overnight take that technology and use it to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ was a wonder to watch and to see. And so it was a wonderful lesson for me to be able to learn and pick up from my missionaries, but also to know that when they are taught, they can respond and be able to do marvelous and wonderful things. So I watch miracles through missionaries. I watch missionaries perform miracles before my very own eyes. And one of the miracles that my missionaries performed during the whole time we were on a mission, only 1 month, we did not really baptize. It was in the month of March when COVID started. And then during the next 8 to 9 months when COVID was intense, my missionaries baptized every month. And so in the sense, I'm just trying to emphasize this point that when missionaries are taught and are led very well and the vision is communicated to them, they take that vision and they can transform it into something wonderful and marvelous. So I learned that the young people of the church, if they are taught, they will respond, and they will respond very, very, very well. And I learned that on a mission. And I learned that young people of the church can cause miracles, not only perform miracles, but they have an ability to cause miracles, and they are able to cause it in a wonderful way.
That's incredible.
Beautiful.
As you're speaking about young people, I'm just looking at even my life now, how my mission president has shaped my life, and just how, like, my parents and my mission president, they're helping me to move forward, and they've all played a part in my life, and are still playing a part even today. I still reminisce on the things that my mission president taught that affected me on mission, and it still leads to some skills and things that I'm doing now. So the next thing we want to talk about, we want to jump into a heavy topic, which goes back to when you were young, and growing up in KwaMashu, and you finding the church. Now, this question is leading us really into also the history of the church in itself, and how you grew up in South Africa as a young African boy, and you growing up in that situation, you find the church. Can you take us through, that situation of you finding the church and that experience of, you finding the church and converting to what the gospel was teaching you, including the time that it was in, as we know that it was during a time of even apartheid,
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. So I mentioned earlier on to you that my mission experience was a turning point in my life. But I think really that encounter in September of 1980 with the missionaries in the streets of KwaMashu was really a turning point. So I met the missionaries. I was on the street playing soccer with my friends when the two white men driving a Mazda 323 hunchback pull over, and we ran away as young men because we thought they were police. Because in my township I grew up, those days, the only white people that were around really were the police. But they invited us to listen to them. Reluctantly, we did so. We listened to them. And shortly thereafter, they invited us to come to a home of a brother that they were visiting. And I don't know how they had met him, who brought the church to Wamashu. This brother was living in Wamashu and told the missionaries where he was staying, and they were coming to see him when they met us. And that was the beginning of the church in the townships of Durban, and I must say also in the townships of South Africa. And so we joined this white church, a very suspicious thing to do, not a popular thing to do those days, to go and interact and mingle with white people. But I like to believe, now looking back, I like to believe that God had a plan for me. I can't speak of my friends who played soccer with me, nor of any other people. I'm going to speak for myself. And I think that God had a plan for me. And the plan was a plan to transform my life, transform the life of my family, and transform the life of the family that I will have. And that transformation was only going to take place through my membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I came from a very poor family. And I know that's an understatement, because those days, every township family was poor. And they remained so even today. And so, and again, I'm not going to speak on behalf of other families. I'm going to speak on behalf of my family. And that is, we're poor. I had no prospect or anything except to remain in the township and be a victim of socio-economical situation of the township those days. But as I said, I think that God had a different plan for me. And that plan he had them through the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that you joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a young man and grow up in the church, and by growing up in the church, learn great things, and the church will contribute to make you the man that I want you to be. And I really believe that. And then so through choices that I made as a young man, as a young adult, as a married man, as an adult, God continued to bless my life. And for that, I'm grateful. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints then, and my membership into it, opened new pathways for me that I never thought of before.
That's amazing. And it's particularly amazing thinking about the climate in which you are, or you were at the time, right? You were in a climate that would not encourage that. Yet you were able to see the light. Yet you were able to see that this saved me. This gospel saved me. Obviously, you could not see it at the time you joined. You can see it now in retrospect. You can see it looking back that was the greatest decision you made. But at the time, it may have not been so obvious. What influenced your desire to serve a mission, if we may ask, in that climate? What made you decide you want to go serve?
So we were the first Black South African missionaries to go out. I went out in 1985. My friend went out in December of 1984. He was the first one, and I was the second. We became the first African missionaries to go. Wow. So I don't know what influenced me. And again, I think that the Lord had a plan for me, and He made sure that I also do not frustrate His plans. Because when we had good white members who really wanted us to be better and who wanted us to be committed into our newfound faith. They encouraged us, and we assisted a lot of missionaries to teach the gospel among our people using English. And our people could not speak English. They were speaking Zulu, so we translated for them. The combination of support from the white leaders of the church and from the experiences we're having with the missionaries, all of that contribute to accept an invitation to go and serve a mission. You know, when we joined the church, we thought that only white people could serve a mission because we had never seen a black missionary before. So it came as a surprise to us then when we were invited that this opportunity is also open even to us to go and serve a mission. And we took it, and I now make a confession. I was probably not as prepared as I should be to go on a mission. But again, I think that the Lord had his ways, and he had his plans, and he knew that along the path, the conversion would take place. Along the path, the purpose for why we do serve a mission will come to the fore. And he did. And I think that I did not disappoint as a young missionary. If my mission president were to rise up from the grave right now, we would say he was a good missionary. But all of that was learned while we were on a mission.
So I'm going to come back to the story of your mission later. I know there's a story that I want to pick on that's in there, but I want us to still be on the history of the church. I love everything that you've said. I think it's crazy that how you still were able to find opportunities in a place where you are in a vulnerable place, in a as you were saying, you're from a poor family, you don't have much. And, you know, we tend to be people who look, especially nowadays, you know, we tend to be people who look at other people, look at white people and say, I will never ask them for any favors. I will never, you know, go and do anything for them when there is an opportunity. You know, we do know that there's a history of abuse and history of racism and history of oppression, but we've kind of still let it cloud, you know, us and our minds and us going and asking for help. But my question that I'm going to pose to you right now is, now today, I guess we can see that it's much easier for us to intermingle and work with people of other races. How was that integration between Black people and white people during that time that you were growing up? Like there's another story that you mentioned about yourself and your, I think it's your bishop at the time, and an exchange of a suit. I'm sure you're going to share that, but how was that integration between the two groups of people? Well, how uncomfortable was it? You know, what were the issues and things that came up during that time?
Well, you see, you know, whether you're talking about the racism at church or racism at the university or racism going to the shop or wherever you talk about racism in the context of South Africa, it is important to look at the context. I mean, you talk about yourself, Brother Shadagama, having a wonderful relationship with the white people, interacting them well. I mean, you were at church with me today, and there was not even a spark of racism on either part, whether white or Black. But when you go back 45 years ago, 43 years ago, when we joined the church, it was a complete different world. A world where interaction between a Black man and a white man was a taboo. And you see, because of culture and context, now I'm looking back, yes, some people were racist on both sides, and some people that show, now I look back, that show some racial inclination. It's not because they were racist, it's because of the context that they were living in. For example, I grew up during the Group Areas Act, during a Separate Amenities Act. All of these apartheid acts were in place. So then what do you do? I mean, here you are. I mean, I'll share with you an example. For example, my first district conference I attended, it will have been maybe 81 or 82. When we arrived there, we were seated according to racial group. That first meeting. And looking back and knowing the white people that were around there, I don't think they were racist, but they were trying to build a church in the context of apartheid, with its restrictive laws that were in place. Because if I were to say that they were racist, then why would they encourage me to go on a mission, for example? If they were racist, then why would they come to Kwamashu and help us build a branch? So but there's a context in their racial outlook, and that in place there was an apartheid system with its apartheid laws. And so it made things difficult. It made some people conclude that some people are racist, probably when they were not. And in the book that I going to be published very soon, which I write about these experiences, I'm not being apologetic on behalf of the white people, but I think that context is always very, very important. Sometimes it is mixed, it is missed when we talk about our experiences and our situation. We quickly miss it, but it's important that one understand the context. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, when it moved into the township, it moved with the context of apartheid. But those that were racist by very nature, they found a great excuse, isn't it? If we were racist by very nature, then the apartheid regime and the apartheid laws gave you a reason to perpetuate which we believe. Yeah.
President, this is powerful, Mdletshe. And I had never considered it in the way you've put it right now. Consider the context. Consider the contextual time frame of everything happening. I think the same is true within the general church. Even back before 1978, across the church, Black people could not get the priesthood, right? Would you then say the prophets are racist at the time? Would you say, and I don't think that's true, because like what you're saying right now, what is the context of the time? Does it make sense to push something when the laws are against that?
In as much as I mentioned that point, I don't know whether we can dismiss racism outright and say never, because you see, whether you live during the time of Brigham Young or David O. McKay, or as close to us as we can, Spencer L.B. Kimball, even during the time of Brigham Young, there were people who were very forward in their thinking, who sat in the councils of the church, who saw things differently. And so, I mean, you're talking about the whole question of race and the priesthood in the church, the practice where Black people were not given the priesthood. Was it perpetuated by racists? There is a body of literature that supports that view, that it was pushed by racism, because there were people who sat in the same councils, these councils that would say, well, maybe that's not what the Lord is telling us in the scriptures we are reading. But if you are at the lower end of the leadership, your voice doesn't hold as much power as those that are on this side of the leadership. You know what I'm trying to say? So, I mean, it is important for us to listen to everybody that we work with, that we sit around with. Sometimes we don't. Even some of us with a big leadership position, we stand with our opinion, And even though there is a voice, a lone voice out there that says, have you considered this? Have you thought about this? Because I'm so convinced in my rightness, then I ignore to listen to other people, what they might tell me, And so I believe that even Brigham Young sat with people who saw things different than he saw. When he began implementing the policy of denying Black people a priesthood. I really believe that in that council, there were some who saw it differently, but they didn't have much influence to see it differently.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. So we because of mindfulness of time and respecting your time, ordinarily we're supposed to move on to the next topic, but I can't go without this next question I'm going to ask. So forgive me. We are speaking of the history of the church as a whole, and then we're speaking of the history of the church in South Africa, right? We're speaking of the times and just the development in the time that the church has been here. So you will correct me. I think the first ward or branch was started here in Cape Town, where I am. Please correct me. And I think that there was one mission in the country, no temple, one mission. But I think the first missionaries came this side, right? Why do you feel the church has grown in the way that it has? Meaning, there's been a bit slower growth in this side of the world, as opposed to maybe if you go to Johannesburg and in other parts of the country. What could have influenced that, according to you? What's the word I'm looking for? Just with you, according to experience, what do you feel like could have influenced the rate of growth in the church within different metropolitan areas?
Well, I don't know. But you're asking me to guess. I would like to guess. I'd like to give it a guess. I think that Joburg is a big metropolitan. I think in Johannesburg, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 stakes in Johannesburg, and in Durban only 2, in Cape Town 2, in East London about 3, maybe 2. So really, one should not ignore the size and the population makeup in different locations around the country. I think that does make a big difference. That is just my thought. The church seems to grow a little bit faster and quicker in bigger metropole than in smaller one. The reason I do not understand. No, I don't know. Is it because maybe the church has more resources here to be able to do that? I don't know. I can't answer that question. Is it because people in big metropole urban areas like this one, because of a socio-economical structure, then they are more receptive to the gospel of Jesus Christ? I do not know, because you see, one of the things that the church never keep what you call racial makeup statistics, which then tell us that the blacks are joining the church, or people with this kind of socio-economical class make up the church. If we do keep those stats, we could be able then to begin to make an inference and say, well, because of this is this. So as a result, the only thing I can say is that it is just that's how metropolitans behave all over the world. The church grows faster and quicker in those places.